Your phone was faster on the day you bought it than it is right now, and that is not an accident, it is not your imagination, and it is not simply because you installed too many apps. There's a documented pattern where devices from major manufacturers measurably slow down as they age, sometimes tied directly to software updates rather than physical wear. Somewhere between 18 months and 2 years after purchase, the same phone that once opened apps instantly starts to stutter. Apps take longer to load, and the battery drains faster even when you use it the exact same way you always have. Most people assume this is just technology getting old, the same way a car gets old. But a car's engine does not get slower every time the manufacturer pushes an update to it. Your phone's hardware has not changed at all. So what actually changed? The answer sits at the intersection of chemistry, corporate incentives, and a system most people never notice until it is too late. This matters because smartphones are now one of the most expensive recurring purchases in an average person's life, often costing more per year than a car payment once you factor in upgrades every 2 to 3 years. Globally, well over 1 billion smartphones are sold annually, and the replacement cycle is the financial engine that keeps entire companies profitable. If phones lasted 8 or 10 years the way a refrigerator does, the economics of the entire industry would collapse. That means the pace at which your device feels too slow to keep is not a neutral fact of physics. It is a business variable, and businesses optimize variables. The historical backdrop here goes back over a decade to the first widespread controversies where manufacturers were caught throttling processor speeds on older devices, sparking lawsuits and regulatory scrutiny in multiple countries. Since then, the practice has become more subtle, wrapped inside software updates that claim to improve stability and efficiency. But the underlying tension between device longevity and sales targets has never gone away. Understanding this system means understanding one of the largest hidden costs in modern consumer technology. Subchapter A. The foundational mechanics. The simple analogy is this. Imagine a rechargeable battery like a sponge that gets stiffer every time you squeeze water out of it and soak it back up. After a few hundred cycles, the sponge cannot expand and contract as fully, so it holds less water even though it looks identical from the outside. Lithium-ion batteries work in a similar way. Every charge cycle causes tiny chemical changes inside the battery, forming a layer called the solid electrolyte interface, which gradually thickens and increases internal resistance. The real technical workflow is that as this resistance rises, the battery becomes less able to deliver sudden bursts of power, which is exactly what a modern processor needs when it jumps from idle to full performance while opening an app or running a game. Subchapter B. The invisible processes. Here is what happens beneath the surface that most users never see. When a battery ages and its ability to deliver peak current drops, the phone's operating system faces a risk. If the processor demands more power than the battery can supply in that instant, the phone can shut down unexpectedly, sometimes mid-task, which frustrates users and generates support complaints. To prevent this, manufacturers build in what is often called dynamic performance management. The software silently monitors battery health, and when it detects that the battery can no longer reliably support peak processor speeds, it deliberately caps how fast the chip is allowed to run. This is not a bug, and it is not your phone getting old in some vague sense. It is a specific engineering decision made to trade visible speed for invisible stability. Layered on top of this is a second incentive structure. Software updates themselves tend to demand more from the same hardware every year, adding new visual effects, background processes, and security layers that a 2-year-old chip has to work harder to run. Subchapter C. Real-world case studies. The most well-known case study is Apple's admission in December 2017 that iOS was throttling processor performance on iPhones with degraded batteries, specifically models like the iPhone 6 and iPhone 6s. Users had noticed random shutdowns before the update, and afterward noticed dramatic slowdowns instead, which sparked a lawsuit that Apple eventually settled for hundreds of millions of dollars, alongside introducing a battery health menu, so users could actually see this happening for the first time. A second case study comes from Samsung and other Android manufacturers, where similar throttling behavior has been documented, though often framed publicly as battery optimization rather than acknowledged directly. In both ecosystems, the pattern repeats. A device performs at full speed when new, batteries chemically degrade over roughly 500 to 1,000 charge cycles, and software steps in to manage the consequences in a way that is technically protective but commercially convenient, since a phone that feels sluggish is a phone the owner is more likely to replace. Subchapter D. Common misconceptions. Most people believe their phone slows down purely because apps get bigger or because they have too much stuff on it. Storage clutter can cause minor slowdowns, but it is a small factor compared to battery-driven throttling and software bloat. Another common misconception is that this is a deliberate plot to force you to buy a new phone every single cycle, when a more accurate picture is a system where planned obsolescence emerges as a side effect of overlapping incentives rather than a single evil switch someone flips. Engineers genuinely need to prevent shutdowns. Marketing genuinely benefits from faster upgrade cycles, and neither side has strong pressure to build a phone that stays fast for a decade, because nobody in the profit chain is rewarded for that outcome. Zoom out, and this pattern connects to a much larger trend across consumer electronics: the shift toward efficiency-era hardware, where manufacturers now design chips and batteries with replaceable, reparable components, partly because regulators in the European Union and elsewhere have started mandating longer software support windows and easier battery swaps. This regulatory pressure is reshaping an industry that spent 15 years optimizing for the opposite outcome. There is also a secondary industry quietly built around this exact problem. Independent battery replacement services and right-to-repair advocacy groups have grown substantially, turning fixing the slowdown into its own multi-billion-dollar aftermarket. As battery technology improves and solid-state batteries edge closer to commercial reality, the entire slowdown cycle described here may become less severe within the next decade, but for now it remains one of the most predictable, engineered experiences in modern technology. The lesson here is not that your phone is defective or that companies are secretly sabotaging you every time you unbox a new device. The lesson is that performance is never just a hardware number. It is a decision shaped by chemistry, software policy, and business incentives working together, often invisibly. The next time your phone feels sluggish, check its battery health setting before assuming you need an upgrade, because a $40 battery replacement can often restore the speed a $500 replacement phone would have given you. Your phone was never broken. It was just following a system designed long before you ever pressed the power button for the first time.